What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. Want to thank my sponsor, Steel Supplements. Link and discount code down in the description. Also, you'll notice in the pinned comment, I have my own Webull link. It's the best promotion they have for you. Love to see you guys open an account because it's free money. You don't even have to deposit $1. Just open an account. They will give you free stocks. And then if you want, sell the stocks and take the money back. I don't know that you're going to do that, though. Make a lot of money in the market. It's really becoming a big part of how I live my life is trading. But we're going to start off here with franchise mode. Obviously, you guys know last year, this was the big ticket item, right? Swami, Sean, two guys we'd never really seen before, sat down, and they sold us a story. They told us a tale. They made promises and commitments that never got upheld. And now we're seeing the fruits of that labor the second year when Swami is gone from EA. Call the shots from the front office as you lead your Madden NFL 23 franchise to the top. The drama of NFL free agency leads the way with new athlete motivations like team location and salary demands factoring into contract negotiations. New player tags improve offseason activity logic and impact player progression. Updated trade logic AI represents the value of star players more accurately for fair and more realistic offers. And then it actually tells you refined scouting, management, and weekly features. Here's the problem that I have with this. We're going to be granular in breaking this down. Athlete motivations like team location. Okay, the only time I really hear about team location factoring into a player's motivation to sign is when it's close to where they live, close to where they went to college. It's a decent area temperature-wise, which means you're saying a player might be, less likely to sign in a small market, less likely to sign in what we may deem as poor weather. That's a ridiculous statement to make because some players want to go to Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers. Some players want to go to Green Bay because they like cold weather. Some players want to go to Seattle to help see a team rebuild. Maybe they love rain, right? So I'd really question where this athlete motivation is coming from and how much we're going to be able to see it, right? Are you going to see a player's weather preference impact the team they go to? I hope not, because this game has so many issues larger than that, but regardless, salary demands have always factored into this. But salary demands aren't the issue with Madden. Fair compensation for players across the board becomes the issue. Because when you're trying to re-sign a player that wants 4 times the amount a comparable player in free agency will take, that's where team building gets fractured and has been for a long time in Madden. You have a player that doesn't understand their wealth or their value, declines offers that they should accept, and then go out into free agency and take a lesser offer than you ever offered to begin with, because the logic in the game is broken. Meanwhile, you could also make the case that the players in free agency aren't even aware of the offers that you have on the table, and rather than playing up to them and saying, well, I'm a wide receiver, your receiver's leaving for 5 years, $15 million. I'm only going to take 5 years, $13 million, so you save $2 million. And if you don't want to do that, I'll go look at another team, is not in the game. Right? That logic just isn't there. So EA is a master at marketing. I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to listen and understand and try to comprehend. New player tags improve off-season activity logic. New player tags improve off-season activity logic. Tell me what that means. Tell me what that does. You're selling a game here. They're trying to sell something to you right here. New player tags improve off-season activity logic. I've covered this game for over 10 years. I don't even know what that means. I can't even define to you off-season activity logic. I understand that it's talking about the off-season, but Madden really doesn't have an off-season, right? We don't learn about these players' personal lives. Player tags, the only tags I'm familiar with, are the ones that you earn in the game for a player. Now, part of me wants to hope this means, like, when you have a running back like Jonathan Taylor, right? He's going to want to go to a team that has a good offensive line. When you have a receiver like Jarvis Landry or Tyreek Hill, they're going to want to go to a team that has a young quarterback, like we've seen when Landry went to Baker Mayfield. But we also might want to see a player go to the Cleveland Browns now that they've got Deshaun Watson. But how am I going to see the offseason activity logic? How is that going to impact player progression? Right? Is a player going to come better simply because they want to go to a different team? It doesn't make sense. Updated trade logic AI represents the value of star players more accurately for fair and realistic offers. It's interesting because this has been one of the biggest problems with Madden. And we kind of touched on it a minute ago as far as trying to sign contracts to players that don't understand their own value. The trade logic is very much broken in the same facet. But here's the reality. When you look at franchise quarterbacks, we'll use Peyton Manning and Tom Brady because everyone knows them. They came different ways, right? Peyton Manning, first-round draft pick. Very much an argument between him and Ryan Leaf when drafted. Tom Brady, obviously, drafted in later rounds, forced into a starting role. Both of them go on to be two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history from very different starts. So when you talk about trade logic and star players, that, in a nutshell, shows you how a player can become a star, can become a legend in two completely different paths. So when you tell me that the game is going to represent the value of that player more accurately, I don't understand, because that's an emotional connection, right? You're emotionally connected to a first-round pick. You're emotionally connected to a player that comes from the later rounds that becomes the starter, whether it's a quarterback or not, right? Gary Brackett, great example with the Colts. Walked on, went in, became a starter. You have an emotional connection. You have a star player on your team. You have a veteran. You have a leader, right? The game doesn't really have any way of recognizing this, especially if you as a user do it within your franchise. If you draft a player, that you think is going to be a gem and they bust, it doesn't matter. But if you draft a player that you don't have expectations for and they play themselves into a starting role and they do well, well, now that's a player that is key, that you want to hold on to, that you would value differently, right, than a player that just came in the door, than a free agent you just signed as a stopgap. So when you talk about teams valuing players more accurately, you have to have a really deep ingrained engine to comprehend what players want, why players are where they are, and what a player would be willing to do to leave, or take to leave, or need to leave. Right? We don't even have, disgruntled players. We don't even have scheme fits. We don't really have players that recognize what another team has to offer them. We don't have teams that realize they're rebuilding. That's why you see so many quarterbacks, so many receivers, so many corners get signed, right? The game doesn't understand basic principles of team building, but you're going to tell me that you've updated all this logic. You don't need to update what's there. You need to replace what's there. You need to go back, in my opinion, you look at NFL head coach, had real, tangible, I don't want to say engines because I don't know what they had done, but you have real living environments almost, where you get the sense, hey, this player's not going to re-sign. This player's had enough of playing here. They're going to go somewhere else. This player sees their worth, and they're going to go out and get a contract that I can't offer or match them, and that's all there is to it. We see examples like this in real NFL. Go back to Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis wanted to get out of Baltimore, right? Couldn't get a contract. How many times do you see a team look at a player and say, hey, go test your worth in free agency. Talk to you when you come back. How many times do we see a player be a problem continuously and then fail to sign with teams? Or when they do sign with teams, it becomes a huge story. Des Bryant. None of that environment is in Madden. They can't build that environment. They can't create that environment. They can't nurture that environment. There's no way that they're going to update that environment. And these are just the things they're talking about improving. We're not talking about things like creating a stadium. We're not talking about compensating draft picks properly. There's so many things that we're leaving out. This is just what they're telling you in their second year coming off the biggest rebuild and commitment to franchise mode that we can look and see holes in a paragraph of them selling a game to you with. And that's the real heart of the matter. This is what they're selling, what they last year said was their biggest commitment to. And there's still failure written all over this. As a franchise gamer, again, more of a slap in the face. More proof that they just do not want to give in and create an NFL simulation, because NFL simulation, to me, yes, it starts with gameplay. Yes, it starts on the field, but what separates the NFL from every other football organization is the commitment to quality, the commitment to building, and the commitment to creating an environment that will win, and the ability for a user to go out and do it. Right? Every other form of football, college football, you're going out and you're recruiting, right? You can't buy, well, I mean, I know some people will make the argument, but you can't really buy the best team at face value, right? The NFL, you can. But we've seen buying the best team in the NFL isn't the same as buying the best team in Major League Baseball. Because you can put the best players out there, but if there's not chemistry, it's not going to matter. How many times you looked at a wide receiver core and said, how is any team going to stop them? How is any team going to cover them? Right? How many times have the Cowboys tried to do that? And you know why it doesn't work? Because you do not have the chemistry. And that type of logic and engine is just not existent in Madden, and it hasn't been for a long time. And we can talk more about what Madden lacks than what Madden puts into its product. And that's the real shame. Another year of franchise gamers that won't go beyond 5 to 6 years in a season, because after that, it just becomes a mess. Love to know your thoughts on this. Appreciate you guys sticking through a long video, but these things really, as a gamer, they frustrate me, they upset me, because it shows me they're only telling us what we want to hear, but they're not keeping the commitment. You can't go from a full dev cycle pushing franchise mode in response to fix Madden franchise, and then the following year come out with 8 lines of what you're doing and nothing new. Love to know your thoughts on it. Appreciate you checking it out. I will be back as soon as I can with more commentary.